Hey friends, I hope you're doing really well. This is Tracy Brown, and my team and I of non-diet trauma-informed dietitians help you feel more connected and safe enough to be able to have food and movement and body image feel embodied. So in this video, we are going to talk a little bit about why it's so hard to consistently move without torment, without obsession, without anxiety, and keep ourselves out of this back and forth of either like too much or not enough with movement. And so I want to ask you if any of these phrases sound familiar as to maybe why, to start unpacking a little bit why, that movement's hard, maybe in this fitness obsessed world. I would say Western culture world. And so I'm going to do a couple of disclaimers, is that I totally always validate that our bodies do like movement. But there are all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with willpower as to why it's hard to consistently move. And so we're going to go a little deeper than this, than the more surface level. Our lives are really busy. And we're really going to go into some deeper things, because a lot of times when people start to even figure out how to make space for movement, if that's something you desire, you do not have to move to be worth love and safety and value and all that kind of good stuff. You can make it the rest of your life and not be a regularly active person. It's okay. Does it hedge our bets a little bit with mobility and strength and all those things? Totally yes. So this whole video series is not about invalidating that movement is valuable, but we have valued it so much in Western culture to the point of worship that we end up starting to feel like that's just something, it doesn't feel right, and we don't want to go there. We don't want it to feel like the bad old days of being obsessed, but we don't know how to do it. So I'm going to read just some things that I kind of thought through and put together as to why maybe it feels so hard to find that sweet spot, wherever that is for us. So do any of these phrases sound familiar? We haven't found movement that's accessible or good enough. And so sometimes we have this belief that like we have to love every second of it to get moving. Okay. And again, that's because we sometimes see these bright, shiny people like, I love movement and it's just easy. And that's not everybody's story. And so when we don't match that, we think something's wrong with us. Right. Number two, sometimes people use movement as it's been used against us, either from ourselves or from others, to get us or prompt us to improve our health. So it's like, you have to do this prescription, this many minutes per week, and then you really care about your health. We often kind of have some of that programming. Sometimes we never did get a chance in our life growing up, whether just from circumstances, whether that was limited access in your neighborhood, maybe you had to drive really far to go do things that were enjoyable, and it was just hard, so we just never got a chance to learn. And that's a lot of our stories, especially if the kinds of movement that was easily accessible wasn't something you liked, all right? Again, you feel like you have to love movement. That doesn't have to be the case. It could be that we didn't get a chance to learn what's good enough and how to, like, it feels good enough to listen to something that we enjoy as we ride a bike, take a walk, whatever. We have learned that that's not good enough, basically. I don't know what is good enough. Sometimes I don't know what good enough looks like, because we've had this no pain, no gain mentality with movement. This idea that everybody should be training like a soldier or an athlete, Olympic athlete, for it to be good enough. Again, another reason that people struggle with movement is I feel like I have to do it right. There's some kind of belief system or bias or something that you've arrived if it looks a certain way. And that's a teaching out there as well. Again, it has to be intense to count. You have to be sweating buckets and sore for 2 days and just feel like you're going to pass out. And then it matters, whether it matters from a earning worth perspective or maybe calorie burning or weight loss perspective, whatever it is. Okay. I have health issues or chronic pain, and having the guidance to learn how to navigate, pain days, less pain days, what to do, how to really know the edges of what your body can do, the nuances of that sometimes when we don't feel like that's acceptable to follow the nuances. It's either this way or nothing. And then we just sometimes don't do anything. Okay? We've been shamed for our size or our ability. Keep that one in mind in too. Maybe you like certain activity, but because you're not the best at it, you just don't do it. Either as a child or an adult. This can happen anytime in our lives. Our patterns of movement, exercise, only happen when we're trying to lose weight. So that's really fairly typical in diet cultures, countries, areas, is that people just use movement as a weight loss tool and it's prescriptive, and doesn't matter if you're sick or have other more pressing family matters or want to connect with a friend. It's like, you have to do that movement first. Otherwise it's just, it's not going to happen. I've missed many, I remember way back in the day missing many a wedding, a funeral, an event, because it's going to interrupt my workout schedule. So it just wasn't going to happen. And, I can see obviously the selfishness in that. And I can also see like the terror that drove that selfishness, so I didn't know how to have a good relationship with exercise. Again, it was all or nothing, right? I don't want to be seen moving in public. That's a pretty common one because, again, of all the stereotypes that you must need help with your movement or your exercise routine, or you don't know enough based on what you look like. That's a really common stereotype against certain sizes of people. Sports, movements, PE, all those things were just never fun or were even miserable growing up. So that kind of created this neural pathway of like, you're a person who doesn't like movement. And we limit ourselves to like, well, not all movement happens, all ways of movement happens in the things we grew up in. And that can kind of arrest our development with learning and growing, okay? Body sensations can feel way too much when we move. And oftentimes when I see that, there's some overcoupling with past movements that felt too much, too big, too fast, out of control, against your will, think trauma kind of things, that sometimes just doing safe, regular things feels too much. And we get kind of flooded, maybe emotionally or sensory wise, and we just like, no dice, not going there. And at the end of the day, all or nothing, like we kind of talked about here as a summary of this video, is all or nothing. And so these are just a few, or like many of the ways that it's hard for us to get going. We just have movement overcoupled with diet culture. We have movement overcoupled with threat response, whether physical, mental, or emotional. And that's the bottom line. And that's what I would love for you all to unpack as you hear this video. I want to give a special announcement as I'm talking about all this, because we are going to run a making peace with movement, like little mini class. So it's going to be about an hour of material to look at prior to the coaching call that I will be there. I'll be me running it, and I'll be helping each person who shows up on that call live with some of the places that are kind of stuck, and giving them some coaching to go on to the next level, the next phase with that, to really, again, try to uncouple some of the stuck places. So I'm really excited about offering this. I've been wanting to do it for years. I've had the material ready, just had never gotten to it. So here we are, we're going to do it. I'm really excited. You can see the details below about dates and times and all that good stuff. So thank you so much for watching this. I'm going to talk a little bit more about, now that you've kind of maybe unpacked, or you can identify where some of these stucknesses are for you, whether it's physical, mental, emotional. And then in our next video, we'll talk a little bit more about the next step, but beyond the coaching call, of course, but just to really get you ready to have some breakthroughs. So I'll see you in the next video, and bye for now.